In a year like 2020, it's incredible that I can still be surprised by things. And while for a while I didn't think that was possible, right? We just glossed right over murder hornets and that didn't faze anybody. It's, I guess, comforting to know that I can still be surprised at some things. I'm not sure. I had family come in this weekend. I was very excited to get back here today and talk about the NBA coming back. There was a lot in recruiting news that I wanted to get to. But then I open up Twitter, and I see something so surprising that everything else had to go onto the back burner because this needs to be on the forefront of the sports conversations around the sporting world. For those of you not familiar with the We Are United movement, that's what we're going to be primarily talking about here today. And I reached out to someone who is directly involved in this to kind of get some clarity, and I cannot believe that this is happening, and let's get into it. So for those of you not aware, the We Are United movement is a movement specifically out of the Pac-12 right now, although it looks to be garnering support, and after this, it probably will garner support out of every major conference in college football. Now, what is it specifically? Well, there's a few different things that are going to be negotiated through this movement. Think of it as a player's attempt at a CBA in the Pac-12, right? And it's this movement of kind of a collective things that they would like to see accomplished, goals that they have. And there's three primary ones. One, right? First, better safety as it relates to coronavirus. They don't want any surprise medical bills because they're risking their lives already playing football for our entertainment, and now they're doing it during a pandemic. And they want better medical just security as it relates to coronavirus, which absolutely makes sense. The second thing is better racial equality as it relates to funding, right? College football is primarily African American. And right now in the United States, we have an area of large racial injustice. And so the Pac-12 athletes understand that what it is they do garners millions and millions and millions of dollars every year. The NCAA perpetually makes millions of dollars, and they do absolutely nothing. So why not give a bit of that money to try and help racial equality in this country? Absolutely makes sense. This is an issue we've been fighting since the civil rights era, long before that, and God forbid it continues for another 10 years because it really doesn't make sense why it's still an issue at this point, other than antiquated systems and those people holding us back. And the surprising thing is as it turns out, one of those people is at Washington State University. But I digress for right now. The third thing that this movement kind of curtails to is player compensation. Now, this is something that I feel very passionately about. I don't understand why players aren't allowed to be compensated. And for those of you on YouTube, you'll know Destroying used to be a punter until they took away his scholarship because he had a YouTube channel. That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense that individuals who are going out there and risking their lives for our entertainment aren't allowed to make money off of their likeness. This kind of sorts to put a line in the sand to where players can be compensated for what it is they do. Now, once again, kind of going over all three of those, we have safety as it relates to coronavirus, funds being used for racial equality in this country because that's something that so desperately needs to happen still, and finally, player compensation. Three reasonable requests going into a football season where we're in the middle of a pandemic. You would think. And this is where the surprising thing is, because head coach of the Washington State University, Nick Rolovich, has taken issue with his players being a part of the We Are United movement. Specifically, Cassie Woods was one of the first players on the team to be let go. Now, it is important to note that they're saying they haven't been cut, right? That they have just been kind of temporarily let go of the team. But that is absolutely just bonkers to me. We're going to get into this because this is one of the most infuriating things I've seen for a few different levels. First off, these players were trying to do something positive on all three fronts, and you as a head coach are now telling your players that you need to be distanced from them. That makes no sense. And this is the message that John Woods, Cassie Woods' father, gave to a reporter, Theo Lawson, about the situation. This is what Nick Rolovich said to Cassie Woods' father. If you're a part of that movement, part of all the unity movement and what's going on, that's going to force me to kind of release you of your duties from this football team for this year. Now you're going to stay on scholarship this year, but I don't know what the future plans for next year are. Then he told him Monday to clean out his locker. As you can see, this has nothing to do with opting out. This has nothing to do with anything other than being a part of a movement asking for equality. And a head coach has said he doesn't know what the future holds. He essentially said, please get out. Now, we can't kick your scholarship out this year, but who knows what happens next year. Now, this is infuriating to me for so many reasons, but one of the primary ones is, as a head coach, you go into a parent's home trying to get a kid to sign to your university, and you tell those parents, I am going to be out for the best interest of your son, both as a man and as a football player. Because as much as I love sports, as much as I love football, a head coach's job in college is also there to develop that individual as a young man. Because football is temporary, right? Life is about more than football. Football is a mode, a means to something bigger for a lot of people. But for some people, that's not going to be the ultimate goal. The NFL isn't for everybody. So a head coach's job in college is to develop these young men. In high school is to develop these young men, both as football players, but as men. Because for some of them, that's the last stop. So they need to be developed as young men, and that's the job you signed on to do. But the second that a player comes with issues, you turn your back on them. You said you were going to be out for their best interests, and the second that they had an idea of how they could make something very positive come from college football, something that has blessed all of us with a pastime that we love, you turn your back on them. Cassie Woods is not the only player to be quote-unquote cut from the team, even though they're not saying they were cut, which is absolute nonsense. Now, I reached out to Cassie Woods' mother, Jerlene Woods, and she said this earlier on Twitter to Theo Lawson. Now, granted, to Theo Lawson's credit, this is when it wasn't confirmed whether or not individuals had been quote-unquote cut from the team. And y'all, I say quote-unquote because the university is saying we didn't cut them, but that's exactly what happened here. That is exactly what happened here. A few hours ago, Theo Lawson said contrary to this, and he shared a picture saying, Wazoo already cutting players for standing up for what they believe in. Not really surprised, though. Theo Lawson comments and says, contrary to this, a source close to the team confirms no WSU players have been cut. Jerlene Woods commented and says, this is a bold-faced lie. Multiple players cut and told to clean out their lockers. Our son, Cassie Woods, who was the first to get cut yesterday. He was told it would send mixed messages to the team, having him around. Today it was confirmed by the AD. Like I said, y'all, they're saying they're not cutting them, but that's exactly what's happening. These kids supported a movement, and what that did is these universities just spat on their First Amendment rights. Now, we've never talked about it on this channel. Before I started doing this right here, I thought that I was going into a legal field. I thought that I would be going into law, right? That's what I'd always done. I worked at law firms in college and undergraduate. I did moot court. I had a lot of success doing that, and I always kind of thought that's the path I was going to go. But I really didn't have a passion for law like I did for sports, the unity that sports can create. But this, where these issues intersect, and this right here is mind-blowing to me, that someone could be this short-sighted. First, this could absolutely be a First Amendment violation. Players are forming a peaceful protest, a movement even, asking for things. Nobody opted out of the season yet, and yet the coach directly said, because you were involved in this movement, we're going to have to distance themselves. That seems to me like a First Amendment violation. I digress off of that. Second off, we already talked about it. You said you were going to develop this kid as a young man, and now you've turned his back on him. I hope that the team turns their back on you, because that's what you have earned. You don't get to turn your back on somebody in their time of need. That makes no sense to me. Now, this is going to have large reverberations over all of college football. What's going to happen, I don't know. What I do know is that this is something that has to be talked about, because Nick Rolovich, you've messed up, man. How you can be so short-sighted is beyond me. And like I said, in a year where murder hornets just got glossed over, you've taken the cake for me this week. And most surprising thing I've heard. That's it for today's video. Y'all really, this is something that is very personal. to me. Because I believe that football, and sports in particular, is something that brings us together. And I always wanted to do the law and the political side, but I saw sports as a means and a mode of how society could be better because people came together. And this is the type of shit right here that just infuriates me. That when somebody needed you and you pledged to be there for them, you turned their back on them. For a movement that was all about positivity and growing and helping people. And you said because of that movement, you don't know what their future is with the team. Cassie Woods, I doubt you see this video, but if you do, I am very sorry that this has happened to you and to all of the other Washington State players. I don't have a list of confirmed players right now, but all I do know is that there are multiple players. And I wanted to leave today's video with my favorite quote from one of my favorite movies, and it's by Marianne Williamson, and I think it's very pertinent today to the players and to those of us involved that this type of stuff can't happen, where people are trying to come together for real issues we have in this country, and coaches are saying because you're a part of something positive, you're done, and they're cutting multiple people. But this is the quote. What is our deepest fear? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. For everybody involved, please keep up what you are doing. This is an issue that needs to be resolved. And it is horrible that a coach has met someone and has met his own players with this message. That's it for today. See ya.